If you're curious to hear a little music from our guest Carla Lucero, who we spoke to in our most recent episode, check out E4TT's annual concert of music by women and non-binary composers, Midnight Serenades, on January 25th. Welcome to For Good Measure, an interview series celebrating diverse composers and other creative artists, sponsored by a grant from the California Arts Council. I'm Nanette McGuinness, Artistic Executive Director of Ensemble for these times. In this week's episode, we continue our conversation with Monica Chu, who joined us in June 2022. What is your compositional process?
That is something I'm trying so hard to figure out. And the only thing that I've found to work reliably is having a date, a venue, and an ensemble. And each piece so far has been a little different in its conception and how it goes. Sometimes it's really fast, like that clarinet miniature that just got premiered. I think that's because I didn't have any decisions to make other than what to write. I mean, the deadline was that day. It was for one instrument, which only has like 3.5 octaves or whatever, and it just like eliminates a lot of angst. But if it's something like, oh, let's say that I want to write a chamber piece for next spring, it just opens this whole can of worms in my head of who should I write for, and how long is it, and where is it going to be, and when do I need to have the score ready? And the more clearly I see the end performance, the easier it is to actually get something out. With the caveat that I'm not particularly good at writing for myself. I actually haven't written very much piano music. My first piano piece was actually, I played it in June, and I wrote it like the week before and finished the score the day before. So it was not a great experience stress-wise. I'm actually pretty good at writing for people who have limited rehearsal time. We'll see. So, yeah.
Does being a pianist affect your composing? Do you mostly write at the piano?
I would say that being a pianist leads to a lot of neurotic feelings on my part about composing, because as a pianist, I'm really blessed to have an enormous amount of literature that no other single instrument or vocalist could even begin to approach. And that's both a wonderful treasure and also incredibly intimidating, because there's this feeling that everything has already been written for the piano and there's nothing new. There's no new way that I could say anything on piano. And it's not very conducive to being creative, feeling like there's nothing new to say. So it's very strange, but I actually have an easier time improvising on clavichord, because I don't know, I've just had too many piano lessons. I would love to write for a slightly larger ensemble. I don't want to say orchestra, because I'm not terribly interested in orchestral writing right now, but I would love to write for like Pierrot ensemble, or something totally different, like, I don't know, woodwind quintet, or I don't know, something that I don't have very much experience with as a player. Part of the enjoyment that I get out of studying music is just exploring new territory. And I love looking at repertoire for instruments that are relatively unknown to me, like, I don't know, double bass or countertenor or something.
What do you see as the next step in music technology? Anything you'd like to see happen?
So I think the past year has illustrated the need for video conferencing technology that's really easy to use for musicians. Um, Even just for something relatively simple like a piano lesson or a voice lesson. I think it took Zoom maybe 6 months to introduce music mode after the start of COVID. And, that was really just like a bundling of checkboxes that would make the setup easier to use original sound and turn off echo cancellation on all this stuff, which you must do in order to play music over any platform. So I tried everything that was out there. I think I tried Zoom, StreamYard, Google Meet, Jamkazam, Jamulus, Ninjam, Jacktrip, all that stuff. And it was all, with the exception of like one or two things, it was all a terrible experience. And it's an incredible expense in time for all these people who want to listen to each other and play for each other, to go through the same silly sequence of debugging every time, right? So what I would love to see in music technology is just huge usability improvements, especially since we don't really know when COVID's ending, if it ends. So I'm expecting remote collaborations to continue.
Thank you for listening to For Good Measure, and a special thank you to our guest, Monica Chu, for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast by clicking on the subscribe button and support us by sharing it with your friends, posting about it on social media, and leaving us a rating and a review. To learn more about E4TT, our concert season online and in the Bay Area, or to make a tax-deductible donation, please visit us at www.e4tt.org. This podcast is made possible in part by a grant from the California Arts Council and generous donors like you. For Good Measure is produced by Nanette McGuinness and Ensemble for These Times and designed by Brennan Stokes, with special thanks to audio engineer extraordinaire Stephanie Neumann. Remember to keep supporting equity in the arts and tune in next week for Good Measure.